Thing is on. Perfect. Good morning. Hello, my name is Jeremiah Gibson. I'm the Executive Director of the New England Association for Family and Systemic Therapy. Welcome to our second annual State of Therapy Conference. I'm so thrilled to have you all here this morning. We come into this conference in an incredibly anxious time in our world. Monday, the New York Times released what we already know, that a borderline nymphomaniac can manipulate our financial system created by other nymphomaniacs to avoid paying taxes. Tuesday night, we saw the most obnoxious couples therapy session played out on live TV. Said borderline nymphomaniac continuously interrupting, prescribing false information, and gaslighting both his fellow presidential nominee and the country at large. Wednesday afternoon, in the town over from where I live, there was a Back the Blue rally, one of dozens of these popping up throughout Massachusetts. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for supporting the police, for supporting law enforcement. Back the Blue has also become one of dozens of dysphemisms, phrases that use moral language to suggest one thing, but really come with undertones of exclusiveness, racism, and violence. And this morning, the president and first lady contracted COVID-19. That's just this week. That's not to overlook the fact that we're in month 7 of quarantine and figuring out how to teach and how to be students and how to be parents and partners and therapists all over again. That's not to overlook the fact that every week we learn of more brown and black bodies who have been brutalized, if not overtly by the criminal justice system, then covertly by systems of gentrification. And in our world, processes by insurance companies that limit the accessibility of any number of services, including couples and family therapy, to everyone. Last year, for those of you that weren't at the State of Therapy last year, I described the State of Therapy as a representation that the New England Association for Family and Systemic Therapy is a movement, as well as a professional organization. While Massachusetts is one of the leaders in the country in spending on mental health services, residents in Massachusetts work with therapists who are deemed successful by the number of clients that are seen in a week, rather than the quality of services that they provide. They're underpaid by insurance companies, particularly for doing couple and family therapy. Families in Massachusetts with the greatest needs are being met by therapists with the greatest amount of inexperience. If I hear the phrase evidence-based practice one more time, especially after all the systemic inequalities and discrimination and grief and loss that 2020 has dredged up, I'm going to scream. I recognize that NEAFAST is in its 18th month of operation, but I believe that we, together, as therapists, can make a difference, that we can influence how folks in Massachusetts experience healing, not just through the development of coping skills, but also through the power of relationships, through accessing courage and confronting anxiety, to talk about hard things and hard processes with those who are dear to us.
Such a cool
Conversations about race, loss, sex, discrimination. Over the next 2 Fridays, we'll talk more about how we want to invoke conversation, collaboration, and ultimately change around 6 important issues in our field. Rick Hendricks, NEAFAST president, will talk more about NEAFAST in a bit. When he and I were developing a layout for NEAFAST a few years ago, we came up with this model. NEAFAST starts in the middle with how we can support those who do systemic work. This morning at the breakout session on the impact of COVID-19 on the future of therapy, we recognize that this year has accessed a nationwide period of grief and loss through the myriad of losses that have come from COVID-19. I will facilitate a conversation that describes how we can support each other as therapists, especially with an increased likelihood of countertransference. Scott Cohen will lead a conversation about the ethics of teletherapy for couples and family therapy. Scott brings his expertise on ethics in family therapy to facilitate a discussion around, if we were to design a teletherapy training program for couples and family therapists, what would we include? We hope that this product will not just help members of NEAFAST, but also the thousands of other therapists in our state and region who work with couples and families over Zoom. Moving forward outside the circle, Lanisha Allen, Simone Matthews, Lisa Saunders, and David Haddad will lead a conversation about how we can address racism in the therapy room, and then provide resources to other therapists who might experience this with their clients and supervisees. This also requires us to capture our own propensity to discriminate, both individually and as a profession. Joe Wynn will facilitate a conversation on the vestiges of racism in the field of psychotherapy and family therapy. As I mentioned in one of the advertisements for the conference, just saying that we're anti-racist doesn't make us anti-racist. My hope is that Lanisha, Simone, Lisa, David, and Joe will help us find ways to take ownership for our own participation in racism so that we can then identify specific ways for NEAFAST to truly become an anti-racist organization. And then we move to the outer two parts of the concentric circles model with our last two breakout sessions. Mary Jane Beach and Julia Postuma will direct a conversation about how we can concretely and efficiently advocate for family therapy to other systems and the public. Jackie Gagliardi, Frank Gomez, and Beverly Eba will facilitate a conversation about writing in 2020, highlighting our new journal, the New England Journal for Relational and Systemic Practice, as a space for all of us to contribute and share what we're observing in family process and family therapy, and to describe ways of practicing family therapy as inclusively, non-biased, systemically as possible. Each of you has agreed to be a part of two of these breakout sessions. While each of the presenters will introduce the topic, the goal of each breakout session is to generate dialogue and to develop action steps so that we, as a professional organization, can build with you in the coming year an organization that supports best practice for relational therapy, family therapy, and relationships. These breakout sessions are also the first of what we're hoping are many conversations about each of these topics. One of the reasons that we're having this conference on successive Fridays is to create a space for multiple conversations, today and next Friday, for starters, and any dialogue you have between now and next Friday, and after next Friday. So this morning, please share your thoughts. Use the chat box to type in questions. In the small breakout groups, feel free to ask questions, participate and share your ideas, because your idea may be the thought that spurs us to look at something from a more nuanced or holistic perspective. We cannot move forward as an organization without your ideas and without your energy. And we cannot implement these ideas without you joining us in further dialogue and implementing these ideas. We did some things well last year. We generated a lot of energy from participants and developed some really good ideas. We did some things not so well last year. We didn't do a great job capturing that momentum and using the energy from last year's conference to build some of the ideas that we discussed. We, as leadership of NEAFAST, promise to change that this year. So be on the lookout for emails from us each of the next 2 Mondays and following days as we lead the charge to implement some of the ideas that we talked about today. I want to hand this over to one of my co-hosts, Jackie Gagliardi. Jackie is a professor in the William James Marriage and Family Therapy Program. Rick Hendricks, president of NEAFAST, will follow with more information about NEAFAST. And then I will say some final instructions about the morning before we go into breakout sessions. So Jackie, take it away.
Okay, so welcome. It's a pleasure that William James College can co-sponsor both this conference and be a member on the editorial board for the journal. So I was really excited to be part of last year and the things that we got done. I mirror everything that Jeremiah says, so I'm not going to say it again. But given the inequities of mental health services, it's imperative for us as clinicians to come together and facilitate the development of programs and partnerships to develop equal services to all. So hopefully today we'll not only discuss the state of therapy, but also develop strategies to change inequities, not only in the mental health field, but in our society as a whole. So enjoy the day.
I want to turn it over to Rick Hendricks to talk a little bit more about NEAFAST.
Certainly. So I want to echo, of course, Jeremiah's sentiments as well, but welcoming you all to this conference, to the second annual State of Therapy Conference, a unique and different way, not only because of the platform of which we're doing now, but also just the approach that we're taking to these kinds of conferences as we did last year, trying to remain a cutting edge organization that is on the edge of making change and figuring out ways to make that change in a most effective manner. And so today is just another step in that direction and in that journey. As Jeremiah said, we are still a very young organization. As many of you already know, we kind of grew out of the Massachusetts Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, but have expanded to include all of New England. When that division was dissolved by the national organization. And we did a real analysis of what needed to, where in the marketplace was there a gap. And we brought in many of the folks that are on this call and others to analyze that and really look at where we could go. And then that concentric circle model that Jeremiah referenced kind of emerged from that organization and that group that then brought this to fruition. So here we are, a very young organization, just getting started, but trying to do some interesting things around systemic therapy and really focusing on, that was not by mistake that we included the name systemic in our name, because we really want to focus on that as opposed to just marriage and family, but rather we saw ourselves as a group of clinicians, not just MFTs, but a group of clinicians, no matter your licensure, who are gathered together around a common approach to psychotherapy. And in a lot of ways, a common approach to seeing the world as a large system, and how does one part of the system impact other parts of the system. And so that's where we want to have our influence, and that's where we draw those from the behavioral health world to come together in order to participate and be influential in our professional circles, but also the society at large, which you can see just by the agenda for today and where we're going, that is our goal, and that's our mission, if you will. So before I go further on that discussion point, I do want to introduce our current board members. As Jeremiah shared, I am the president of the board right now, and Jeremiah is the executive director for the organization. And then we have Mike Lynch, who is, he's somewhere, there he is, on my screen, but you can see him maybe move around or something, but as you kind of pick it up. He is the president-elect for the organization. And then we have Mary Jane Beach, and she's one of our presenters today as well, and she is the secretary for the organization. We have Stuart Moskowitz, and there he is up on his couch in Ohio, I think, yes. So we really expand ourselves regionally. That's part of New England now, I guess just his little home, we've annexed it. And of course, then one of our presenters today too is in California. So we're definitely becoming national. Yes, Beverly. And then another board member is Delphine Adu. And Delphine was driving in earlier. There she is. I don't think her screen's on, but you can see her name there. She's joined us there. And Catherine Manners, unfortunately, is not able to be with us today. She was going to be a presenter, but she had a death near her family, and so she was unable to attend. And then we have Jason Neely, who will also be, there he is. And Jason's our newest member of the board. And then, of course, our tech support, as it says in our thing, but also administrator and takes care of a lot of our different things behind the scenes. And that's Lindsay Swan from Minneapolis, now. So
Hello.
again, we're expanding New England. We're taking over the nation by moving around. I happen to be in Rhode Island, so that's where I work out of New Hampshire, but I'm living in Rhode Island. So I'm covering both sides of Massachusetts, kind of sandwiching them. So, but we're expanding the organization, and we're really trying to begin that process. So I think Jeremiah kind of touched on the history pretty strongly. So I'm going to kind of let you understand a little bit more about the specific mission. And I'm going to just right now, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read our mission statement, but I think it's important to just see where we're at and put it into context. So the New England Association for Family and Systemic Therapy is the professional home for family and systemic therapists in Massachusetts and the surrounding states. We are a membership organization of professionals dedicated to the advancement of family and systemic therapy through advocacy, networking, and education. And as again, you can see from our agenda today, that is what we are approaching. Is we're looking at advocacy, we're doing networking just as we're gathered together on this Zoom call, but also as we go through each of our sessions, you'll see the networking that occurs. And what we want to do is this is not just a conference, but rather it's a means by which we transfer and share information with one another, but then a call to action with what we do after we get that information and share that. And that would be the networking. And then of course the education follows with that. On our website, it has more details on those three areas and how we envision approaching that. So then that brings me to the real reason why I want to address you is we have a gathered group here who have expressed some level of interest in what we're doing through our training program and the gathering here together over these topics that we're addressing in the next 2 weeks. And this is the group that we really want to reach out to if you are not a member. If you are not a member, we want to encourage your membership. For a good example of that is just this conference. You would almost save the cost of the entire conference just by becoming a member. And part of that's by design because we are new and we're just trying to build a base. And it requires funds in order to build that base. So our membership dues, as well as the participation in conferences such as this and other activities that we have going on. I think for a small and very junior organization, we are trying to offer a number of different things, the book clubs, the other gatherings that we have. And there's a lot of activity that's going on, but that activity requires people power. And you are the people, and we want to harness your power and engage you in our organization and join in a common cause gathering around systemic therapy, and then using that to have a systemic impact on our society at large. So that's my first plea. My second plea is rising to leadership. You may be new to the organization, maybe not even a member of the organization at this point in time, but we hope as you become more familiar and as you see us, there may be opportunity for you to say, maybe I'd like to be more engaged in that organization. And right now we do have a few openings on our board. It is an application process. We do want to encourage you though, if you feel that inkling, to please reach out to any one of the board members that I introduced here, or you can reach out to me specifically. And my email address is very easy. It's familytherapistx, like X-ray. So familytherapistx, all one word, @gmail.com. I got that email a long time ago when I was in school and I tried to get family therapist and that was already taken. So I put the X on the end and it worked. Some people said it sounded like Speed Racer for those who know Speed Racer. Anyways, so I want to encourage you though, if you are interested in serving on our board, whether you have just more questions about it, what it might be, what's involved, how much time, those kind of things, please reach out and I will definitely get back and we'll discuss it. Jeremiah, I know, is also open to have that conversation with you as well. So either one of us, or any board member for that matter, would be happy to share that with you. So looking for leaders, we're looking for participants, we're looking for you to join us in NEAFAST. So thanks, and I'll probably be talking to you later as well during the conference. Take care. Jeremiah, it's back to you.
Thanks, Rick. So over the next 10 minutes, I want to invite you to do the following. If you could change or advocate for change in one particular area of the mental health field, what would that be? And what I want you to do is to type that answer into the chat box, if you could, and look and see some of the phrases, some of the language that comes up. While y'all are doing that, I want to again echo Rick in giving an enormous thanks to Lindsay Swan. Lindsay will be organizing our breakout rooms today. All you need to do on your end is stay on this Zoom link, which will be the Zoom link for next week too. To the presenters, please private message Lindsay on Zoom if you need her to help with tech stuff. We'll talk more about next week at the end of today, but for now, first of all, as you're continuing to read some of the messages that are coming in, education, ending medical necessity, removing diagnosis requirements, increasing reimbursement rates, making more aspects of work reimbursable. As we're reading through this, as we're thinking about what real parity looks like, what equal access looks like, enjoy your first sessions.